Okay. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you can see that. Yep, nodding. Great, cool. So tēnā koutou katoa, everybody. As Cheryl says, my name is Josephine. I'm with Toitū Envirocare. I'm also in my day job at Toitū, and I also help out on the Parnell Business Association. I'm on the board, and my role is to sort of try and help bring sustainability very much front of mind. In terms of the purpose of the seminar series, so as Cheryl says, this is our third, which is great, but the sort of purposes are really to prepare businesses for what is coming, what we're seeing, a low carbon economy, and how can your business get ready, providing hopefully some tips and resources and ideas of things that you can do, but also really importantly, connecting like-minded businesses. There's some great organizations that have been focusing on sustainability and decarbonizing themselves for years, like Villa Maria, like EcoStore, and many more, particularly in the Parnell region. So this series is to sort of bring and celebrate those businesses with you. So today's topic is the conscious consumer. What we're seeing, and we've seen a massive rise, particularly since 2019 and during COVID, of the conscious consumer. So these consumers think that the behavior of a company is just important as to what they sell. These consumers are typically under the age of 40, but I know many that are over 40, including myself. These consumers are, if you could mute yourself if you're, unless you've got any questions, that would be great. Thank you. And what we're also seeing is these conscious consumers are actually willing to pay a bit more for services and products that align with their own values. And that is coming through very, very strongly. So what actually is a conscious consumer? Well, a conscious consumer in a nutshell is someone who looks beyond the label. They are people who want to either work or buy from companies that feel that, as I say, that aligns with their values. And this is a dollar that is becoming really important, and a dollar that people are wanting to make sure that their businesses has the opportunity to present their credentials in a way that those conscious consumers know who they are. Some of the growing trends that we're seeing, as I mentioned, the first one, buying from businesses where they feel it aligns with their values, like Villa Maria, EcoStore, Kathmandu. And these are businesses that actually are winning awards for their sustainability credentials. We're also seeing a huge rise in veganism and flexitarian, and it's moved on from just the meat-free Mondays. Now people are very much, meat-free weeks or completely going vegan or vegetarian. We know that this is also a demographic that specifically wants to buy animal cruelty-free products. That is obviously really important. They also shop locally. We've seen a rise of people wanting to shop from farmers markets, not just because it might be organic food, but also because they want to be able to buy from buy local and support those markets. There's a huge demand for organic food and clothing. So often people think, when they think organic, they think food, but actually clothing, the rise of organic clothing has grown. There's also a growing swell of people, actually allotments. It's really hard to find an allotment now. But these are people who are wanting to grow their own fruit and vegetables. We saw a few years ago the promotion with New World, which they've rerun for the little seeds. A lot of people actually are interested in being able to provide for themselves. And particularly as prices of food and products go up, obviously it's really nice to be able to, and very rewarding to be able to provide those for yourselves. Also, and this sort of speaks to my heart, but people are wanting to look for certification on products. So as we see a rise of these conscious consumers and this market, as this grows, it's becoming more important to avoid greenwash by actually having a certification and independent validation that your organization or your product for your services. And so things like Carbon Zero, B Corp, Fair Trade, we're seeing a huge increase there. And we talked in our last webinar about kind of green power, but a lot of people are interested now in being able to try and generate their own power. So what actually is greenwashing? So I guess, you know, it's on the flip side. So we've got organizations that are wanting to do the right thing, but we've got organizations want to do the right thing, but actually just by branding themselves as providing green products and services. So greenwashers talk very loudly about sustainability and about contributing to a better world, but actually without doing anything. Whereas responsible companies work hard to create shared values for the society and the planet. So that's a sort of the difference between greenwashing. And as I say, as this market of conscious consumer grows, we're only going to see more greenwashing happening in the marketplace. Which brings us on to our two presenters today. So not in this order, but we have Karen Tutelier from Villa Maria, and Karen is Head of Legal, Risk and Sustainability. But first we're going to hear from Bridget McBride, who's the Senior Brand Manager from EcoStore. And just on Bridget, so just a little bio. So Bridget is a marketeer with over 10 years experience across companies, large and small, including Lion, Unilever, EcoStore. And I know that they're all very sustainable organizations, both here in Australia and New Zealand and the UK, Bridget's worked. Bridget is passionate about growing brands which enhance people's lives and have a positive impact on the environment. And I know that EcoStore have been well regarded in their sector as the leader of sustainable products. So I would love to hand over to Bridget.
Thank you, Josephine. Lovely bio. I'll just share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yep, that's great.
Thank you. Cool. So lovely to meet everyone. I thought I'd open with just a little bit about us, although I'm sure everyone's very familiar with EcoStore, and then I'll jump into the presentation. We were founded in 1993 in an eco-village that you see in this picture by Malcolm and Melanie Rands. And the story of how the brand was born was they were out in the garden and they had noticed that their garden bed had started to die. And when Malcolm sort of traced the source of why the garden bed was dying, it was because his dish liquid and his laundry liquid that was running off from the trailer was killing the garden. And at that moment, he was like, oh my God, there are no products today that are safe for the environment. How can this be? And that's how our brand was born. So creating products that work, but also good for the environment.
Bridget, may I interrupt you, please? Can you put your screen onto full screen?
Oh, yeah. How do I do that? Is there a setting?
Okay, if you can't do it, don't worry, Han.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I think it's in presentation mode. I'll just, yeah. Sorry, is that okay for everyone? I don't have anything in too small a text.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. And then as EcoStore was born, Mal started to get feedback from people to say that their eczema had gone or their asthma had cleared up. And at that moment, he realized, oh my God, like these products can be better for your health as well. So we started off as quite a niche brand. I mean, 30 years ago, quite ahead of the time when sustainability became really important. And I guess a lot has changed since then. And this was a report that was released in May this year. And you might have seen that. I think it was one of the biggest global studies ever done on plastic. And what it said was over the next 5 years, plastic production, virgin plastic production is going to increase by 30%. And only 10 to 15% of plastic is recycled globally today. So what we face is a humongous issue of plastic waste. And it's pretty scary. So I guess if it doesn't get recycled, it ends up in landfill or our oceans. New Zealand also made it to the chart. So they panelled, I guess, of the 60 countries, who were the highest producers per capita of plastic. So when it comes to plastic production, and New Zealand was number 15 at 39 kilos per person per year. Yeah, pretty crazy. I mean, we have a smaller population, but it's still pretty scary to be high up on this list. And then when it comes to consumption of plastic, so we worked with the Waste Minimisation Group last year, And they revealed a few stats for us, which were the average New Zealand household uses 941 plastic bottles per year. That's about 1.76 billion containers disposed of annually. Better recycling rates versus the world, so about, but still about 40% is not recycled. So a huge issue for us in New Zealand, and people are really becoming more aware of this. And we saw this reflected in the Colmar-Brunton report. So I'll circulate this after if not everyone's seen it, but a really, really great report to see sort of where people's mindsets are at in New Zealand. And what this report shared with us, so last year plastic waste was the #2 concern, but with COVID there has been a few shifts. But of the top 10 concerns of what people are really worried about in New Zealand, the reference to waste or plastic is referred to about 3 times. So there's build-up of plastic in the environment, not enough waste is recycled, and there's just an over-packaging of products in non-recyclable packaging, and it's ending up in landfill. So lots of concern around the build-up of waste. And people have told us that they are trying to live more sustainably. So I think in 2018, we saw the sort of awakening on plastic, around 42% saying that, oh my God, I need to live a sustainable lifestyle. And I think this came down to when the Blue Planet 2 documentary with David Attenborough was sort of released, and the whole world was like, oh my God, we're facing such a crisis on plastic. And then that number sits at about 36% over last year. And everyone is telling us they're increasingly trying to do their bit. So when it comes to recycling, reusing, buying local products, repairing clothing and making it last longer, that number is increasing year on year. So what does that mean for us? A few things. So it's an awesome time to innovate, and Josephine referred to all the different things that you can do to become a sustainable brand. So making sure you have the right certifications. But also we did a study with our media agency and with Nielsen to understand of conscious consumers, what does the market look like today? And I think what was quite staggering was the market's more green than we think. So from being a sort of a niche brand, we're becoming a bit more mainstream. So we've classified 3 chunks, the different types of conscious consumer. So the first one would be the dark green. I probably put the environment above my needs. So if I didn't bring my reusable coffee cup, I won't drink coffee today. The mid green, where I want to do my best, and if you make it easy for me, I will do it, but I won't always compromise. So it could be some people who really love cleaners that clean. They'll buy the most eco cleaner they can, but if it doesn't clean, they might not make the switch. And then there's the light green, where we see a lot of sort of big mainstream brands play, but people that are a little bit aware, but not really aware. So people that might still pick up wipes, but they might be sort of compostable wipes. So a bit more of a light green, sort of dabbling in, but not fully aware of the issues. What this study also said to us is about 1 in 3 Kiwis want to buy eco products, and that number is growing every year, so about 6% year on year. But over 54% of people can't find sustainable or ethical versions yet. So about 80% of the market's green. 1 in 3 will definitely buy green, but over 50% still can't find those solutions. So there's a huge opportunity to innovate in this space. And what I thought I would share with you is just a few examples in particular to plastics. I think that's one where the awareness of the issue is so high, but it's not limited to plastic only when it comes to the conscious consumer. But a few ways of how we're addressing this at EcoStore. So when it comes to our plastic, we are addressing the source. So we source sugar plastic instead of petrochemical plastic. What that does is take carbon out of the atmosphere instead of put it in the atmosphere as it grows. And we're trying to design out waste the best we can. So we've got our refill stations, about 100 of them across New Zealand, a couple in Australia. And we've got some innovations where we've reduced plastic. So we've just launched some cleaners that were 90% plastic waste, hair care bars, which are just without the plastic bottle. And then another way that we're tackling this is through keeping materials in use. So we've started to invest in recycled plastic as well. And we launched our plastic return program last year, which is, I think, New Zealand's first closed loop system for plastic, where we collect all the bottles that we sell and remake new bottles out of them. And then I guess just to prove the business case for this, our hair care bars business has doubled since last year, which is really impressive for us. So we thought it would be really niche. Obviously, a lot of people are buying shampoo and conditioner in bottles today, but we're seeing steady growth, and that number continues to increase. And I don't think it's just the really sort of hardcore eco people out there anymore that are buying these products. So that's really encouraging to see. And as well with our cleaners that we had just launched in about a month ago, we're starting to see really strong sales and uptake of this as well. So it feels like the more that we continue to address the needs of the conscious consumer, the more our business thrives. So it's a really nice place to be for us. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. That was great. I love your shades of green and your stat on the increase of 6% year on year. So no, that was really interesting. Thank you. So next we're going to go to Karen. So Karen, bio on Karen. So Karen's head of legal and risk and sustainability at Villa Maria. A qualified lawyer, Karen's worked internationally on strategy, corporate responsibility, partnership, sustainability and risk roles. Working for the Royal Bank of Scotland during the global financial crisis, that one must have been interesting, highlighted for Karen the link between long-term business viability and responsible decision-making. Karen's passion is helping businesses turn risks into opportunities and in the process building more resilient, sustainable and successful organizations. At Villa Maria, Karen's responsible for legal, risk, quality, compliance and sustainability and is proud to continue the leadership in quality, innovation and sustainability that is core to Villa Maria's values and I would say heart as well. So that's wonderful. I will hand over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Josephine. And I'll take you through quite a different journey actually for Villa Maria. I'm just going to share my screen here so you can see what I'm going to talk you through today. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Great. So Villa Maria has gone on quite a different sustainability journey, and what we've done is sustainability has been a focus and it's been core to the business for decades. But what's interesting is that it wasn't really different from EcoStore and that it wasn't really fundamental to the business in terms of the purpose of it to start with. The purpose has always been to create great wine, create great New Zealand wine and take it to the world. But sustainability was just one of those inherent principles in the way we operated. And what that meant, so what I've actually put up here is one of our old sustainability slides. And I wanted to do that today to show you the journey that we've gone on in terms of engaging conscious consumers and engaging our staff and our suppliers. So in the past, when we talked about sustainability, we very much talked about the technologies we used in our wineries, the night air cooling technologies, the efficient, energy efficient heat recovery systems. We talked about our certifications, and we've been very much involved in sustainable wine growing since its outset in the 1990s. We started measuring and reducing our carbon emissions over 12 years ago, and Toitū have been a key partner with that. And we've partnered a lot with our certification providers to learn and continue growing. However, when I first started at Villa Maria a few years ago now, what I found is that this was actually core to some parts of the business, and our viticulture teams who are out there working the land every day, it was absolutely essential for them. They to look after the land. For our wineries teams, it was core. But when I talked to our sales and marketing team, they used to say things to me like, we say we're sustainable, but we're not really, are we? And I thought, oh, we've got a problem here. So what I did is I went around the business and we started looking about how we engaged people on sustainability. And so we actually came up with 4 key pillars. And my purpose here was not to necessarily change the direction of what we do, but to be able to provide good narrative that meant that we could really engage people and in that have some real focus throughout the whole business and everything we do on sustainability, and then take that focus out to our consumers. So we came up with these 4 pillars, which is respect the land, and that is critical for us because our land and the way our relationship with the land is fundamental to the quality of our product and to our business. So respect the land was always going to be the starting point. Tread lightly, so how we manage our impact on the climate and how we adapt to climate change was really critical. Investing in people, so that's our staff, but it's also our suppliers and our community. So local economic development is core to the way that we operate. and inspire conscious consumers. And this was a new thing for Villa Maria to think about. We had always thought about our packaging to make sure that our packaging was recyclable. So we've been members of the Glass Packaging Forum since it really launched out about 15 years ago. But we'd never really engaged with our consumers on our sustainability. And there was that recognition that actually consumers were more and more interested in that one. And then as we went through this process, it was hard for us to figure out, well, how do we actually engage with them? Then when we have a product that is, our focus is really about quality wine. So that was the journey that we started going on a few years ago. So I'll just take you through some of the aspects that the real turning point for me in terms of working with our marketing and sales team was when New World were putting out a food promotion a few years ago, and they were wanting to promote reduced waste in food. And the team came to me and said, oh, how do we actually do this? What do we do? Because we want to participate in this one. We thought, oh gosh, wine. There's generally not a lot of wastage in wine. People like to drink our wine, so that's not an issue. But at the same time, what was happening is that I was working with our viticulturalist here, and you can see Brett here in his high-vis jacket. And we had a worm farm on the site here in Auckland that was taking all the food scraps from our restaurant, and it was taking the food scraps from our staff lunchrooms, and it was producing fertiliser that we then used out in the vineyard. And when I was talking to Brett about this one, he said, oh, it's overflowing, it's full. We need a new worm farm. So we went and talked to Worms R Us, and we purchased one of their first worm farms, of what I call the Hilton of worm farms here, because it's a great one that we can use for interaction. So it's got this. It doesn't look anywhere near this clean now. If you come to see it, it's well and truly filled with worms and vegetable scraps, and but it's got the windows, the viewing parts there that we have a lot of tours on site here, and we can show people how the worm farm actually works in reality, and we show them the worm tea that we take off the worm farm and how we use it on the vineyard. And we were going through this process, and at the same time I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to really engage with our staff too, because they were quite curious about what we were doing. So I organised for Worms R Us to give us a discount for all of our staff for domestic worm farms, and they also did a couple of presentations to our staff to show them how to use them, and our staff loved it. They were really engaged in the whole process. And so when the marketing team came to me and said, we want to participate in this promotion, what do we do? I said, oh, well, what about giving away worm farms? So, and they looked at me, and I sort of thought they think I'm mad, but they thought, do you know what? It might work, and we might not get any competition entrants, but hey, let's just give it a go. So we did this proposal up, and as we took it up to get signed off at the exec level, because it was a bit of a departure away from what we usually did, I actually got a bit of pushback from the people who actually had been sustainability champions, and they said, we usually give away cruises or glamorous holidays. And I sort of looked at them, I thought, you're supposed to be our sustainability champion here. So, but they agreed in the end that we could do this promotion, and we did it. And apologies, the photo's not great. Whenever I tried to lighten it up, it managed to crash our system. But what you've got there is where we did these neck tags on the wine promotion, and we gave away 50 domestic worm farms, and people loved it. It got so much attention. We had over 600 entrants. Our team couldn't believe it. And when we actually notified the winners and we sent the worm farms out to them, and these worm farms came all together with the worm bedding and the worms, etc., all in the one package. We actually got photos coming back in from our customers and our consumers saying, oh look, this is where we've set up the worm farm. We're now going to be processing the scraps from the school and so on. And the level of engagement was fantastic. And that was a real turning point for us, because things clicked into place for me then in terms of how we needed to engage our consumers, and also that validating the research. Now, we've all seen research, such as Josephine and Bridget have just shown us, which is great to see that consumers are more interested in making sustainable choices. But it really, for our team, it really validated that. So, and the other learning from it is that when we engage with consumers, it needs to be genuine. So the more that we can link it to something that we do and the journey that we're on, and that we're taking our consumers on the same journey, and for them to join us, we thought that that means that it's really genuine. It's not going to be coming across as greenwashing. And the other learning for me in that one is it's about bringing our staff on the journey too, because our staff are our biggest advocates. So if I just take, so the next step of the journey after that one, the team came out and then they're like, great, we're going to do 3 sustainability sort of promotions this year. So they went away and they came up with different ideas, and they did do a number of different ones. But this one here that I'm showing you on screen was the most successful. So this one came out last year, and it's Blooms for Bees. So one of the things that Villa Maria do in its vineyards is it plants a lot of wildflowers. You won't see that the same in Auckland because we've got this lovely kikuyu grass, which makes life a bit difficult, but it's good for weddings that we have in Auckland. But if you go to our vineyards in Hawke's Bay and Marlborough, in November, December, you'll see a lot of wildflowers. And the reason why we plant the wildflowers, it's actually, we talk about bees a lot in our marketing, but the reality is it's to attract a parasitic wasp, which then eats the leaf roll caterpillar, and it means we don't need to spray. But the team here sort of thought, no, we need to have something that's going to resonate with people. So we talked about Blooms for Bees, and we talked about our efforts for biodiversity in our vineyards, and we actually gave away seed packets. So those neck tags that you can see on the wine bottles there actually had a wee seed packet in each of them. And so when we ran the promotion, they would get their own seed packet, and the messaging again was, this is what we do. Come on the journey with us, plant your own wildflower seeds in your own garden, and enhance the biodiversity in your own environment. And we also gave away seed packets to all of our staff as well. So that was another one, and that was incredibly successful. We had so much engagement on that one, and people loved it. And the thing that I really noticed with that one, with our marketing and our sales staff, they were really proud. You know, it meant that they were out there and they were real advocates for this. And all of a sudden they wanted to learn up about everything that we did in our vineyards, and that it really engaged our whole team and got them connected into what do Villa Maria do, and let's be proud and let's go out there and talk to our consumers about what we do. So then that evolved. The next stage of this journey is that we've been doing organic, or we've been developing our organic proposal for over 20 years, and it's been quite a big learning journey for us. It's not been easy. Growing wine organically is really not easy. We get lower yield from our crops, and it costs us more to do, but because it's lower yield, we often get better quality wine. So our organic wines are beautiful. They taste, they're definitely some of my favourite wines. But because it's taken us quite a while, we've never had a fully organic range. And we were really, I guess, across the business, people were saying, yeah, we do organics because we want to learn, we think it's the way of the future, we think it's the right thing to do. So really our organic wines were very much driven from the viticulture team, because they felt that was the right thing to do for the land, and they wanted to convert more and more of our vineyards to organic. But what happened is that we took a step back through the process or the journey that we were going on, and saying, well, hold on here, do our consumers want organic? You know, is this just something that we want because we think it's the right thing to do? And we said, well, we have to test that. We had to test to see whether our consumers are prepared to pay a little bit more for something that they think is the right thing to do and for that quality. So to do that, we felt we needed to launch an organic range. And last year, it was really, I guess, the first time we felt we had enough of the organic wine that we could launch a range, and that we were ready to do it. So we've launched Earth Garden earlier on this year. It was the launch for that one. And I don't know if you recognise, if the picture quality is perhaps not quite good enough there, to see that we actually took a lot of the visuals that we used in Blooms for Bees, because it had been so popular, and we used them on the range Earth Garden. And it's been a huge success. And again, it's had massive engagement, and it's really, what it's done is that it's brought together all of our teams. So across viticulture, the winemaking, the wineries, to the sales and the marketing team, they were all really brought into this range, and they're all really, really proud of it, and they're proud of taking it out to our consumers. What we are finding though with a lot of our consumers, they're responding to the visual. So they're responding to the label that has the the flowers on it. They're responding to the name, and we deliberately called it Earth Garden. Ironically, if we're talking about consumers here, none of our team liked the name Earth Garden, but we tested it. So we did some consumer testing on all the names, and Earth Garden was the one that came up the top. And we wouldn't have chosen it, but we thought, well, if it's meaningful for our consumers, then that's what we'll do. So we called it Earth Garden because that was what what came out in the test. And people are actually responding to those cues, and they're picking up the wine and they're buying it, and they're not realizing at the time that it's organic. So we've had quite a few people say to us, oh, we didn't know it was organic. We didn't know Villa Maria did organic. But when they're picking it up, and because they like the label, they like the cues that they're getting, and then they're buying it, and then they're going, oh, this is actually organic. We didn't know that. And what you can't see on the top of the caps here is we're actually using QR codes for the first time, and I'm really excited about this. One of our real challenges for engaging with our consumers is, how do we get across our sustainability story? We've only got a label that's got to have a lot of information in it from a regulatory compliance point of view. We have to have the percentage of alcohol and all the different warnings and things like that on there. So we have limited space on our front label and our back label. How do we get across the message? And that's always been a challenge. And I remember talking to our marketing team about QR codes a few years ago, and they said, oh yeah, it's a great idea, but consumers don't really use them. And we'd talked to people at Common Sense Organics, and they told us the same thing. They said they had trialed it, but people didn't really use them. So the good thing is that COVID has actually had some silver linings. And one of the silver linings is that people now use QR codes, and they're quite comfortable with them. So we've attached the QR code here, and when people zone in on the QR code, they get a video, and they get some key facts and figures about how we manage our vineyards. And we've deliberately not focused too much on organic, and we talk about our sustainable approach generally, because that's the message we want to get across. It's more than just organic. It is about everything we do as a business to make sure our business is sustainable. And that's been a really big success. So to the extent that we've got to make sure it's not too much of a success and we have enough wine of that one. But that's really taken us on that journey of how we engage. So the key learning lessons, I think, for me with this one is we need to make sure that we tell people about what we do, but we tell people about what we do in a way that's engaging to them. So we need to make sure our narrative is meaningful. And unfortunately, while I might get excited about biodigesters or energy efficient heat recovery systems, not necessarily everyone does. So we need to make sure we engage in a way that's meaningful. And we need to bring all of our team on the journey, because they are the biggest advocates. They are the ones that will go out there and tell people. And or they'll go out there and tell people if they don't believe that we actually do what we say we do as well. And the other key learning is we need to engage our suppliers as well, because our suppliers are really critical for this journey for us. And they're also huge advocates. So this narrative that we are building, and we're still very much on the journey of doing this, it's not just for our consumers. It has to be throughout the whole business, including our supply chain. The other thing I think is that we've learned is that whenever we go out there and talk about what we do, it's got to be genuine. So really tying back to the story of why we do this and why it's important to us, that we're on a journey. I think a lot of people worry that if they go out there and talk about what they do from a sustainability point of view, that it will put them under fire, and that people will then try and pick holes in the things that they don't do. We tackle this one by talking about the fact that we're on a journey. We know we haven't got everything right yet. We know we've still got a lot of work to do, but actually we're trying, and we're constantly improving, and we're constantly testing new ways to do things. So you don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be genuine. So that would be the key learnings, I guess, we've taken from engaging with our conscious consumers.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was really wonderful. Thank you. Thanks very much to both of our speakers. Anybody have any questions? You can either type them up in the chat or interrupt or put up your hand, whichever you find easy to do. No questions from anyone?
Yeah.
Sorry, I do have a question, but it took me a while to unmute myself. My question was mainly towards EcoStore's presentation, because I am really liking the concentrates that they're offering, and I'm not sure if offering like the glass little bottles of concentrate and shifting away from the carbon capture plastics is a smart idea in terms of revenue. Obviously, like the shampoo bars and all of that is fantastic, but I'm just aware that obviously we're trying to shift to a paradigm where we don't use that many products. So would it be financially feasible for EcoStore to just do concentrate in the long run?
Hey, Adriana, thanks for your question. A really great one. I think, so overall, concentrating is the way to go to reduce the amount of, I guess, packaging or that you sell. So we know it's a trend that people are really up for, and it's something that we need to have a solution in. So it'd be amazing if the future of the supermarket shelf tomorrow is sort of no big laundry bottles, no big cleaning bottles, and everything is sort of reduced. And consumers also pay a bit less for that as well, because by not having all that packaging, we can also reduce the price. But there is a bit of a contention on what is the right packaging to house a concentrate solution. So our destination or our end goal is to get to something that would be powder-based or tablet-based, to have no packaging at all. The unfortunate thing is, to get to that end point, we can't get there overnight. So I guess we're on that point around we're on a journey. We're just trying to do the best we can at every step of the way. So the reason we chose glass over plastic for that size, so anything that's a 50 ml size in New Zealand, when it goes into the recycling system, unfortunately at that size, it doesn't get recycled, so it ends up in landfill. The good thing about glass is it does break and then it goes into the recycling system. So for us, I guess in terms of the overall debate on, there is probably more carbon to make glass than there is plastic, but recycling is a really important step for us for it to be able to be managed by our systems. It's definitely not the perfect solution, but it is our way to reduce plastic where we can, to have something that can house a concentrate that people want. But yeah, we're on a journey. It's the best we can do for now. But we really hope that in about a year, you'll see something new from us in this space as well.
Excellent. Thanks. And thanks, Bridget. And Suzanne has a question.
Oh, it's not quite a question. It's just more of it. Just well done for doing this on the 1st of July, because it's Plastic-Free July. And for those people that are thinking, what can I do? And I've got a business, and is there anything I can do? Plastic-Free July is actually an Australian kind of brand, but it has a very definite branch in New Zealand called Plastic-Free July Aotearoa. And Waste Minimisation has funded the use of the brand. So you can use any of the logos. There's a whole lot of information, and yes, so you'll easily find it. Just search Plastic-Free July Aotearoa, and there's just tons you could do. And as a small business, you know, you can actually make a pledge to say you're going to go plastic free. And you can do something small or something big, they don't mind. Yeah, so I just thought it was just something that's sort of easy. It's all done for you. There's a ton of collateral. There's a great brand. And it's just an easy thing to jump on board, you know, today. And you could just start using it in your own media pretty easily without a lot of effort.
Thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I've got one for Karen first. Obviously appreciate that this is a journey for you, and it's a journey that you've been on for a very long time, and you're constantly innovating for the next sort of challenge. What do you see as being next on the horizon for you in this journey?
Oh gosh, there's so many different things. But if I just one of the things that really helps us decide on what we focus on is the work that we do with Toitū, with Josephine's team, actually, in terms of identifying where our biggest carbon emitters are, because that's quite good. If we understand the data, we understand then where we need to focus to make the biggest impact. And an example of that is recently with doing our measuring our carbon emissions, we realised that our largest waste to landfill was coming from our filtration earth in our winery in Marlborough. And we realised that actually we could divert that from landfill, and we've started green spreading that. And now we're looking at how we tested it in the last vintage. Now, this is the stuff that is very technical type things that are saying that these are the things that you don't necessarily engage with consumers on, because filtration earth, RD, rotary drum filtration earth isn't something that consumers will engage with. But that meant that we're able to divert, 100 tonnes away from landfill. So these are the types of things that as a business we do on a regular basis. But if we then look at our carbon emissions measurements and understanding where they come from, the two big challenges for us that are going to be really tough to crack, but we need to look into it, is glass. So as Bridget mentioned, glass from a carbon emissions, it's a heavy carbon emitter in terms of its manufacturer, but also because it is heavy to transport. It's also can result in quite a lot of emissions there and fuel use. The challenge is that with glass, it is the best packaging to maintain the quality of the wine. But we have been working. We've done some research with a company called 3R in Hawke's Bay in terms of understanding what innovations are internationally. We're constantly watching those innovations. We're constantly working with our suppliers in terms of understanding what we could do differently. We've lightweighted our bottles as much as, well, maybe not quite as much as we can, but I think that's where we'll be testing. So investigating innovative packaging that can also maintain the quality of the product and the integrity of the product is where I think we'll be focusing a lot in the future. And the other one is diesel in our vineyards. So one of our other biggest emitters that we feel we need to address is the diesel use, and that's in the tractors predominantly. And I've just actually come away from spending a couple of days with our viticulture team at their annual conference, and we were talking about it. We were approached by Fenn, the tractor manufacturers, a few years ago to see if we would trial electric tractors here. When we talked to them, we realised that they really were at the beginning of their journey. So they're not, unfortunately, electric tractors are not going to be an easy one. But what we are doing is that the latest tractors we're ordering, where they're 10% reduction in fuel use, which is great. We're using a new technology called NewPoint to try and ensure that all the movements on the vineyards are as fuel efficient as possible. So we're doing a lot of work in there, but I think the real key to identifying where we focus is about collecting that data and understanding where our biggest impact is.
Excellent. There's a question from Brent. Are customers coming from across demographic groups, or is there a particular profile of a conscious consumer? I guess that could be to either speaker.
Bridget, have you got any thoughts first?
Yeah, sure. I guess from our studies, there are some indicators. I think what Josephine pointed to there is the younger audience that's coming through, predominantly female today. But I think overall, because the issues are so big, the just awareness of these is making everyone conscious across all demographic groups. So I'd say there is probably the core group, which we could probably typically profile. But as time goes on, it really could include anyone on that. Yeah, so not a specific demographic.
Do you know, I would agree with Bridget there. I guess though, for our products, we tend to be more of a premium wine producer. We're not a cheap and cheerful. So if we perhaps had that one, then we might find a difference in our customer groups. But generally, I think across the different demographics and across the markets, there is a real interest. There's a huge interest in our Asian markets. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the different international markets and seeing where they're at. But no, I think it is pretty broad. It is pretty spread across the different demographics.
Okay, folks, we'll bang on time. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you to both of our speakers. Thanks, Josephine. And I hope you all have a fab morning. This will be on our website in probably the course of the morning, and we'll circulate a link if you'd like to share it with colleagues. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.